Hello, I'm Charlotte Chippers, a final year PhD researcher here at the University of Exeter. Along with the other resources which provide you with tips on how to write a thesis, I'm going to share with you my own experiences and some tips based on those. So, my first piece of advice when writing is to start simple and then add detail. So, don't run before you can walk. This means it may work best to draft your thoughts out before adding detail. We all have different writing techniques, and there's a resource in this module which will show you which writing technique you seem to use. So I'm a generative writer, which means that I tend to write down my thoughts first and then sort of redraft, whereas other people may take a different approach. But I think either way, it's really important that your writing is clear and coherent, which means that starting simple is often a good way forward. My second tip is work out what your writing style is. So there's lots of resources on this within this e-module, so you can actually take a test and work this out. So I found it really useful finding out that I was in fact a generative writer, because I'd compare myself to friends who write in a completely different way, and I'd then worry that my academic style was sort of inappropriate, when actually all writing styles can lead to good academic writing. It's just learning how to harness it. The next important thing is to think about ways in which your research is novel throughout the process. So don't try and discover how it's novel right at the end of writing a thesis. Try and think about it throughout the process. I also would recommend writing your introduction last, or as one of your last sort of chapters. It doesn't have to be the last one, but I think for me, writing your introduction and conclusion in conjunction with each other adds to the coherency and the flow of the thesis. So it might be worth considering taking that approach, and it worked really well for me. I tried writing my introduction as the first chapter that I wrote, and because I didn't know sort of how my empirical work would come out, it didn't really make sense to write the introduction first, and it became a really stressful experience. So I think the important thing is to write chapters in the order that you're comfortable with. So it might be that you start empirically, or it might be that you start with your conceptual framework. So there's various ways of doing it, but I'd suggest that it doesn't have to be written in a chronological order. The next thing is make sure that you communicate with other PhD researchers who are at a similar stage to you. It's really important to have a support network. I've been very lucky to have some friends who are at the same stage as me, so we can bounce ideas off of each other and support each other through this difficult time. Next, I'd make sure that you communicate effectively with your supervisors. Every supervisor is different, but they are all there to help you, and it's really important that you keep them involved in your writing process so that they can make sure you don't go off in the wrong direction. So I had one particular chapter that I found difficult to write, and I kept writing entire drafts of a chapter and then finding out that it had gone in the wrong direction, whereas in reality I should have sent sort of short paragraphs or section of that chapter, so I didn't end up wasting my time and their time on sort of writing up entire chapters, which were then unusable in a large sense. So the next thing is try not to be daunted by the scale of your thesis. A thesis is a huge undertaking, whether it's for a master's or for a PhD. So this can become really overwhelming, and I've had times where I've sort of panicked and thought, gosh, how am I going to write an entire thesis? But the important thing is to break it down into bite-sized chunks. So even within each sort of writing session you do, try to set yourself realistic goals. So don't expect to write a chapter in the space of a few days. Set yourself sections and paragraphs to write. The next thing is don't rush. So be systematic in what you have to do. Otherwise, in the future, you may have to revisit things and do them all over again, which is obviously really time consuming. So with data analysis, make sure you're very systematic. Also, label everything, name everything, make sure it's easy for you to revisit pieces of work that you've done in the past, just in case they're useful again during the writing process. The next thing I'd recommend is creating a working schedule that works for you. So everyone is different, so it's really important you try different things. So there's a few resources in this module which will help you to do so. For example, we have an infographic on the Pomodoro technique, which is a really good proven way of sort of motivating you to write. So the Pomodoro technique consists of writing sessions that are 25 minutes long, followed by a 5-minute break. So you can join Shut Up and Write sessions through the university. So these are available in my career zone. I use them quite often and I also host them. And you can also do them yourself. So just set an egg timer or a timer on your phone, and in that time, shut off all your social media and just focus. And then you get your 5-minute breaks where you can, relax, have a stretch, have a drink. And this is a really good way of getting your writing juices flowing. I've certainly found it incredibly useful during writing my thesis. Another thing is plan carefully. So plan what you're going to write, plan what you want to say. However, don't overplan. This can easily become procrastination. If you find that you're constantly writing lists, it might be that you're not actually doing so in a productive way. So I think getting that balance of planning what you need to do, but don't spend ages, making pretty lists that then you don't really use in the end anyway. Just be really careful with your time. So I think time management is absolutely crucial when you're writing a thesis. The next thing is try to keep up with referencing as you write. So keep your bibliography list updated. Writing one from scratch isn't fun. I got carried away with one of my chapters, and although I'd cited everything, I hadn't written my reference list because I was just in the process of writing. And then I really regretted it when I then had to try and re-find all the papers and then write the reference list. So I think it's really important to try to keep it updated as you go. Another thing is make a schedule with your supervisors, with sort of timelines and deadlines that you set ideally. So I've not been set deadlines by my supervisors. I know other supervisors might do it differently. However, I found it really good being able to set my own deadlines so I can hold myself accountable. And obviously I've generally managed to stick to them, so it's a really good thing to do. Another thing is be kind to yourself. So writing a thesis is really hard work. It is not easy. So make sure that you sleep enough, that you exercise, that you eat healthily, and that you wash. Showering is important, and it may seem less important when you reach the final stages of your thesis, but honestly, you will feel much better for it. And it's really important that you don't overwork yourself. Burning out means that you end up unable to do any work, so it's just no point. It's much better to pace yourself and work at the rate that you can work at rather than burning out. My final top tip is back everything up. Just back it up. I'll say it again, back up. So you do not want to lose all of your hard work. So you can't trust computers 100%. Have everything uploaded on a secure drive, especially if it's data or anything. Follow the university guidelines on this with GDPR and everything, but just make sure that you've got USB sticks with your thesis on. Just have it in a number of places, because there's just nothing worse than losing work. So I hope that those top tips from me were helpful. They're things that I go by and that I really would recommend doing wherever possible. We also have lots and lots of other top tips from other researchers and academics in this module, and yeah, so this is just part of the module, and hopefully it will be useful to you. But yeah, so thanks very much for listening, and good luck.